Up next, we have Allison Bulat on strengthening the paradigm of science and patient collaboration.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here on this Friday morning after a long and busy week and the first official dine around or drink around, as some people might have misunderstood, a little language barrier might have happened last night. But I'm glad you're here. My name is Allison, and I'm here representing NEOLS. And I want to tell you just very quickly what NEOLS is. Oh, I can see it right here. So NEOLS is the largest scientific research consortium in the United States of research clinicians and scientists in ALS. So we have over 140 different clinical sites where research is conducted throughout the United States. So it's not an advocacy organization. I want to make that really clear. It's a membership consortium. And it has many subcommittees, such as a respiratory subcommittee, veterans, familial subcommittee. There's different subcommittees, and one of those subcommittees happens to be a patient education and advocacy committee. So that's kind of where, as NEOLS, we can actually work with the scientific community and the patient community on common goals. I'm pushing the little button. There we go. So I want to talk about patient advocacy, because I think when I say those words, probably you have a lot of feelings that come to mind, and they could be good feelings or they could be bad feelings, because I think that's a natural part of the evolution, because a couple of years ago, we didn't really talk about patient advocacy. We were at like ground zero, and now we're at ground 200 million, and there's a lot of noise, and there's a lot of things going on, and so for NEOLS, what we're trying to do is bring that in a little bit, put some boundaries around that, some definitions around that, and find where we intersect and how we can support each other as one holistic community. So I'll share with you how we're kind of doing that. But first, a little bit about me, because you need to know. I was a competitive gymnast and a dancer growing up, and I still do dance and do gymnastics in my home, but it's usually private and followed by an ibuprofen chaser, because I'm not as flexible as I used to be. But I love education. I love people. I'm a type A plus personality. I color code everything. The Alliance is lavender, in case you guys need to know. That's my color for you. But I always try to give a fun fact, because sometimes people have to hear me talk all the time. But today's fun fact is one that most of you probably don't know. My sister's here, and she does, that I'm a terrible traveler for a lot of reasons. But one reason that comes to mind is because I won't use a bathroom on an airplane. And the reason is because I truly think that people are sucked out during the flushing process, but nobody wants to talk about it. So I can't take that chance. I'm not a good traveler, but I do hope to be in Switzerland. So if you see me there, you know what I've been through to get there, right? But of all the things that I'm called, or I describe myself as, the very most important one is I'm a surviving spouse of ALS. And when we use that word survivor, it sounds like it would be a really good thing, but right now it's a really tough gig, because that means that I lost the person I loved to this horrible disease. But while I know the effects on families, I really believe that this is a time of hope for us, and together we have an obligation to work towards that hope, so that in this lifetime, for these people, we can change what that means to be a survivor of ALS. So I think how we do that and our perspectives of that, I mean, we always hear, this is a very varying disease. Well, there are very varying perspectives too. And it depends on where you sit, what your role in the community is, of how things look to you. And there's no right or wrong, it's just different. So for example, in my case, I was at the top of my career in technology. Both my husband and I were in technology. And we built our dream home. We were buying our second home here on the ocean in California. And then ALS comes in. And instantly I became that girl. You know, that girl that her husband's dying and nobody wanted to talk to. You know, that girl that broke down when my husband got his diagnosis and I begged him to prove the doctors wrong. And that girl who made that horrible decision to honor his wishes and remove him from life support. And then that girl that woke up that next morning and tried to make sense of the world for our son, and that lives in fear every single day that ALS will strike again. So as you can imagine, all those places along the way, what I advocated for and what was important to me was very, very different. Right? If I had the microphone, I would go through that with you to get to where I'm here right now to say, hell yeah, I'm that girl. And this is what I'm going to do to make a difference for other people. So what I decided to do, I'm like every family, we all have a story like that, and it's all different. They all have different perspectives along the way. But the thing we have in common is ALS happens, and you look behind you, and you don't recognize anything in your past, and you don't see anything in your future. And so there's a moment in time where you have to decide, how am I going to go forward? And for me, that was Neil's. And the reason that is because we have something that they let me really grow called the Clinical Research Learning Institute. So I realized that research and clinical trials was where my passion was. And I wanted to create an opportunity in the science community for people to follow their passion wherever it may lead them. So we have this Clinical Research Learning Institute, which if you were here for the Alliance meeting, you heard our partners at ALS Canada talk a little bit about. It's actually a Neil's program, started with Neil's that we work on. A little bit about that program, if I can move forward. It's a 2-day program, and we spend a lot of time bringing people together that are impacted by ALS. And, sometimes we separate ourselves by that, as I say that, like those who are impacted by ALS and those who are not. But it's really important to remember that before we were impacted by ALS, we were not, right? So we're bringing people together as the people they were and the people they are with their lived experience, and we're giving them your terminology that you talk every day. We don't know what a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trial is. We don't know what a placebo is. We don't know what a lumbar puncture is because it wasn't part of our life as people before we were impacted by ALS. So we take a lot of time and give everybody a high-level overview of what clinical research means and how we can support the scientific community. You have to turn to make it go. So how do we pick? Well, we have a lot of people that want to go through this process because we want to live a life of purpose, right? So we have a nomination process, and we ask one question. We ask them, what makes you a good research ambassador for ALS? And based on that, we review many, many applications. We select as faculty a cohort that we think would meld together and help us with our goals. And then we start with a happy to meet you hour, which is virtual, so we can all meet each other and become people to each other. We assign research mentors, so other people who are research ambassadors who have been through the program and can help people get started. We invite them to join our conferences, and then we hold the class in person. And every year we hear that the best part about it is actually seeing people, like I'm sure you feel being here, is actually getting to meet the people that are usually on a screen on your computer. So what do we ask of these people? Well, we have no conflict of interest. We don't work for any particular company. We will help anywhere that we can. But we train them. I know my favorite quote, this is my friend Abraham Lincoln, and he said, don't believe everything that you hear on the internet. And this is the basis of what we are training people to understand is take the time to ask questions, understand publications, understand press releases, understand the websites that you're looking at, social media. I don't have time to go through the social media. But we know that misinformation spreads like confetti, right? It spreads like wildfire, and we want to help people get good information because they're making really, really difficult decisions. So we try to just have people look at who is the source? Are they qualified to say what they're saying? Can they interpret what they're trying to interpret? And if not, we have an in to the scientific community to get valid information to share back to people. The other thing we know is that in the absence of a cure, we're going to try anything we can to stop ALS, right? And there's some crazy things out there, but there are some things that are really worth knowing about. So if you haven't looked at alsuntangled.com, it's a great resource, and they have the 10 red flags of things that we kind of want to look at if something sounds too good to be true. Is it kind of good and kind of true, or is it really just too good to be true? And this is a team of neurologists who scientifically look at alternative therapies and give feedback based on a structure, a scientific structure of review. So some fun facts about our research ambassadors. We've held 23 classes, 5 of them like in the last 3 months. So that's why this light is probably not a very good thing for me. But we have trained over 500 ambassadors. We have 125 in action right now in different areas. And we've gone international. So this will be our second year working with our partners in ALS Canada. And we just held our first Australian Curly with the M&D Association in Australia, which is really cool. So we're looking at integrating those ambassadors into our programs. So how do we do that? We do that through the Peace Committee, as I said, and we hold meetings every month, and we invite industry, we invite organizations, we invite other people. So we have our membership of NEALS, so the clinicians and researchers coming together with our research ambassadors, people impacted by ALS, and we create projects and ways that they can participate in the community. And that could be anything based on their skills, or as I call them, mad skills. We come in as real people with real skills, and we join it with our lived experience. So what do we work on? Whatever makes sense, whatever you need. If you want somebody's experience on a protocol, like, are we writing it? Is this a competitive trial? Will people want to participate? We can give you people to do that. If you say, I need a certain kind of person, I need an engineer, or I need somebody who's worked with the FDA, or whatever you need, we probably have that in our research ambassador pool and are happy to give you access to that. And we are all volunteers. I should say that we volunteer our time to this. Every one of us at NEALS is a volunteer for this type of work. So just to give you an idea, right now, these are some of the companies that attend our Peace Committee meetings, and those highlighted in yellow actually have patient advisory committees where we have put together a group of trained research ambassadors, and we hand them over to the company. You can utilize those people's experience and their knowledge as you see fit. They sign the non-disclosure agreements, and they kind of work with your company as the integration into the patient community. In fact, NEALS just started our own patient advisory board, and I'd already submitted this, and we have added one more person, Michelle Francis Bell. So Michelle, if you're watching online, welcome. We're glad you're with us too. But we do have our own patient advisory board gearing up for 2023. So how are we going to know what we're focusing on? Well, we did a survey, and we got responses from 104 of our NEALS members, the clinicians and scientists, and 84 of our research ambassadors. And we were trying to figure out, where do we think that we agree and where do we think we don't agree, so we can figure out why. And some really interesting things came out of that we got, of the 182 responses, 100% answered the question, I believe there's value in the scientific and patient communities working together, as yes. So there's agreement that yes, we do want to work together in a meaningful and value-added way. Our top 2 priorities that came out were defining and ensuring access to standards of care for ALS families and communicating information and updates about active clinical trials to the ALS community. Some areas we want to take a second look at, because we weren't very aligned, is that big elephant in the room of patients attending scientific conferences. That wasn't very aligned, and we want to understand why. And providing access to experimental treatments, such as EAPs and compassionate use, and education and information about preclinical research and the importance of preclinical research versus clinical trials in the patient community. So those will be things that we're looking to resolve any gaps or understandings between the 2 groups next year. But overall, of 17 questions, I think this is 13, so I can count really quick, we had a 90% plus consensus of what was important between the patient community and the scientific community. And that's really telling, because go back 2 years ago when we didn't talk about the patient community or advocacy or how we can work together. That's a really big jump, and that's really meaningful. So the last thing I want to share with you that we're doing, in partnership with, again, our friends at ALS Canada, we realize that it is, we are trying to combat misinformation in many ways, and one of the ways that we can do that is to be available to provide real information. So we have a project called ALS Office Hours that's going to be starting on December 16th, if that's a Friday. Every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, we have a team that will log into Zoom. It's an open Zoom link, because we know that people, you get your diagnosis and you're told, okay, you can come to clinic in 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And during that time, you are like mad looking on the web, trying to find information, right? So this will give you an opportunity to log into Zoom and say, I don't know where to start. We aren't providing clinical answers. We aren't talking about anything clinical. We aren't talking about any trial. We are a collective group of resource givers who care, so people can get information ahead of time and come to clinic prepared to talk to their care providers. So that's a cool program that's starting up. So I know you're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, how can I get involved? And I'm glad you asked, because you can in a lot of ways. So if you're a patient advocate or you have patients who you think would like a purpose in life, have them come to one of our training classes. There's the QR code. If you want to hold a training class, if you want to be part of office hours, you are welcome. We are open to everybody, and we're taking down those borders. So we want everybody from everywhere to be together. So I'll close it by saying, I just want to say from yesterday, because I see my timer is here. Yesterday, they shared a video of me during a discussion, and I didn't know what video it was going to be ahead of time, but it happened to be the video where my husband and I got our diagnosis. And it was a very, very difficult experience. And the doctor left the room and handed me a card, and I went down to the bottom of the elevator to face my husband who had left the room. And I didn't really get a chance to tell you, but what was on that card was the Arizona ALS Association chapter phone number. And I was sitting at that table. That happened 8 years ago. That was 8 years ago, and I was sitting at that table flanked on my left and my right by the people on the other side of that card. So if you think that your interaction with patients doesn't matter, I'm here to tell you it does. You make an impact for a lifetime, because I'm here because those people were there. So thank you for being here today.
Fantastic, Allison. Thank you so much for sharing. I see there's questions already.
This is from Juliet. Amazing presentation, Allison. Thank you. Can you briefly walk us through the organization of your 2 days training program? Is it virtual? So empowering for the ALS community.
Thank you, Juliet. Thank you so much. We do both. We had originally been doing only in-person trainings. However, with COVID, like everybody, we went virtual, and we're like, yeah, we got this. We can do it. So we have done a lot, and we are able to get more people in doing virtual trainings. We're pretty good at it now. I will say that in collaboration with the local organizations, so they really lead it and make it customized to how it works in their community. But it's never the same as being in person, I think, as we all know.
I just wanted to comment. We hosted Curly, and Allison made it very, very easy for us. But I think it was really impactful, right, ultimately for the research ambassadors. But I want to say how impactful it was for the clinicians involved, because it was really, really elevating and explaining and generating new ideas for them and how they can better involve people living with ALS and people impacted by ALS. So thank you, Allison. It was a very, very great program for us.
Thank you. And I literally can't see the audience, but if Sunny is still here, Sunny is one of our research ambassadors. Hi, Sunny. So feel free to talk to her about her experience, too.
And I would agree with that as well, Lauren, that, I've attended several. We've hosted as well, the ALS Hope Foundation. And as a clinician, some of I'm learning a lot about the same things with the research. When Dr. Ostro explains some things for that period of time, I completely understand it.
That's a win.
Any other questions?
Thank you, guys.
All right then, fantastic work.